it was still snowing, and they had no shelter, no drinkable water. I mean, it was water that destroyed them, but there was no drinkable water, very little food, and many of them had lost not only their homes, but their entire families. I mean, the need was desperate, and so the immediate need was great then, but now the need is for the rebuilding of the infrastructure. So I was doing a television PSA at that very studio where I did Held Eternity. It was called Allied Artist Studios then, and now it's called KCET, a local television station. And so it was deja vu there too. I guess if you live long enough, you're going to have a lot of deja vu kind of experience.
And that film starred Jeffrey Hunter, and the nerdier Star Trek fans out there will recognize his name as the original Captain Pike from The Cage.
And the very first pilot. Right. There were two pilots.
Right. Now, famously, Jeffrey Hunter wasn't interested in coming back for the second pilot, opening the door for William Shatner, who became Kirk, obviously. So here's a question for you. You worked with Jeffrey Hunter, you worked with William Shatner, you were there when the decision was made.
I worked with Bill Shatner after we did that for a second pilot, and before the pilot was sold. I did a thing called, it was called Alcoa Playhouse, and Bill played a Schweitzer-like doctor in the jungles of Southeast Asia, and I played a young attorney with a British education, and it was a British crown colony, so I had one of those white wigs and black outfit, and we talked about whether that pilot for this sci-fi thing is going to sell or not. So yes, I worked with both Jeffrey and Bill before Star Trek became an actual series.
So, you know the actors, you obviously know the show. Do you think that Star Trek would have been the success it was if Jeffrey Hunter, who's a great actor, he played Jesus, so he's got to be good, right? Do you think it would have been the success it was if he said, you know what, I will do it, I will come back for that second pilot, or do you think that Shatner is what was needed?
Well, actors are important in projects, but the core of what contributes to the success of a series, I think, is the idea, the story, and what it's all about. And it's really Gene Roddenberry that made Star Trek the great success that it was. Jeffrey is a wonderful actor and a very good-looking guy and a nice guy too, and I enjoyed working with him. And Bill is a singular kind of actor, and he has his own quality. And what does that laugh mean?
Singular, his own kind of quality.
Well, don't you all agree? He is singular. Thank God there's no other like him. I think we speak the same language. You understand? I'm trying to be, how do I put it? What? Diplomatic, kind of, tangential, I'm trying to be, yes, you said it, nice. And I think that's such a wonderful part. Any good actor, and I'd like to have seen Jeffrey continue with it, because he would have brought his own quality to it. But what made Star Trek this long-lasting success is that core idea, the vision that Gene Roddenberry had of the human future. Saying that if we have confidence in our problem-solving capabilities and our ability to invent and innovate, then we will be able to boldly go where no one has gone before. And it was that connected with all of you, I think. And that's why you have stayed with us for 45 years. And at this point now, at 45 years, I'm really looking forward to the golden anniversary. It's only 5 more years. So let's all gather together.
I'm going to ask another question and then we'll go out to the audience. So, I know you're trying to be nice, but let me ask you again.
I think the word I was searching for was circumspect.
Obviously, you and Bill have had your differences. They've been aired on The Tonight Show and on Conan, and you know, so it's
and Howard Stern.
Certainly. And recently, and you're not the only. Obviously, Walter Koenig, your co-star, and others have had voiced issues past. Now, Walter recently appeared. I don't know if you had a chance to see it.
No, I've not. People have told me about it.
It was very interesting. Bill Shatner has a show on the Bio channel called Shatner's Raw Nerve.
He's been trying to get me on it, and I have diplomatically been passive.
Well, I just that's really what you should watch the one with Walter. Walter really let him have it, and you know, he talked about scene stealing and all sorts of stuff. And Bill was like, really? You guys?
He just still doesn't get it.
But here's the thing. He apologized. Bill actually, so I said, you know, maybe now's the, I mean, you know, so do you think you'll reconsider and have a bury the hatchet session with Bill?
Let me tell you something about him. When Brad and I decided to get married, we wanted to be inclusive as possible. Again, you know, the Star Trek philosophy. And yes, Bill and I have a history, but, you know, we didn't really want to bring that kind of tone into our wedding, because a wedding should be a happy, joyous thing. So we sent invitations to all my colleagues from Star Trek, as well as our larger sphere of friends and relatives. They all responded. They civilly, you know, RSVP'd, except for one. Bill never RSVP'd. But that's typical of Bill, because we've all had many other occasions when we sent out invitations to everybody, and Bill never, ever showed up. Or particularly Star Trek-related events, like if any of us got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, you know, we invited all our colleagues there, and we all went to celebrate and say good things about each other at the ceremony where the stars unveiled. Except Bill. Bill never shows up at those things. And so when Bill didn't RSVP, we thought, well, that's typical. It's classic Bill. And so we didn't think anything of it. But a month after the wedding, he goes on the internet publicly to rant and rave about George not inviting him to our wedding. We were absolutely mystified, you know, because he did get an invitation. And he goes around, you know, he says there must be something psychotic. I mean, he's a psychiatrist now, about George not sending him an invitation. And so we were absolutely baffled by this until we were driving down Sunset Boulevard, and there was a huge billboard advertising William Shatner's new talk show, William Shatner's Raw Nerves. And I said to Brad, that's why he ranted and raved publicly. He needed publicity. He needed attention. You know, so he will, there's no bottom to how low he'll stop. The stoop. He won't stop. He'll stoop. And so, you know, there's no point for me to go on a show that he controls, and he can edit to his heart's content. He can ask the questions that he wants. You know, it's his turf. And I see no reason for me to tread that turf.
Okay, so let's start taking questions.
On that note, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm Casey from Down the Road Show, and I like to ask all the guests on my show the same barrage of questions, real quick answers. Who's your favorite superhero? Who's your favorite villain? And as a publicly Takei man,
good for you. It's okay to be Takei.
Exactly. Who is your personal hero in life? Who inspires you every day?
My favorite superhero, which I gather is from the comic hero realm, is Superman, the classic. And I have a wonderful collection of Superman comic books that from my boyhood. They weren't first editions or anything like that, but they were just, you know, comic books that I enjoyed, that I collected. But when I went off to college and came back on summer holiday, I discovered that my mother had given it to the trash man because, you know, it was old newspaper that was there. It was heartbreaking. So that was my college year disappointment about superheroes. My favorite villain, I don't know whether I have a favorite villain or not. No, he's not that bigger than life. He's still human. Let me give some thought to that. But my hero, my personal hero, is my father, because I really think I had a very special man for my father. My father was certainly of his generation, you know, a Japanese American of that generation, and to be broad-minded enough to, he wanted me to be an architect. And so like a good son, I started studying architecture at Berkeley. But after two and a half years there, I just couldn't, you know, the theater and acting fire was in my belly. And the more I got closer to that decision point where my career commitment would be as an architect, I didn't want to give up that opportunity to give myself that chance to test my wings. And so I came back to Los Angeles, and I said to my father, I want to go to the Actors Studio, Daddy, and study where all the great ones came from. Marlon Brando, Montgomery Clift, James Dean. And he said he knew this discussion would be coming up eventually. And he was prepared for a deal for me. He said, you want to go to Actors Studio, that's a fine acting school. But when you finish there, they won't give you a diploma that says you're a legitimately educated person. He said, here in town in Los Angeles, there is a fine theater arts department at UCLA. And when you finish there, they will give you that piece of parchment, that documentation. But you're a bullheaded kid, and I know you're going to insist on going to New York. So let me remind you, New York is a crowded place, a very competitive place, and a very expensive place. And you have to be prepared to do it all on your own. But if you go to UCLA, and that's where your mother and I want you to go, then we will subsidize you. So you decide, New York on your own or UCLA with subsidy. I discovered I was a practical kid. But if you fathers of that generation would have that kind of open mind and willingness to support what I really wanted to do, because he knew who I was. He knew that he was saddled with a ham, and he had to make that compromise on his part. And so I'm eternally grateful for that. But even more than that, you know, I spent 4 years of my childhood in 2 barbed wire internment camps, two U.S. internment camps, one in the swamps of Arkansas and another on the Northern California border between